The president was very open about the fact that he's over there to attract more investment in the United States. He talked a lot about tax cuts, talked about fair trade. Is the message one that will increase investment?
Well, he certainly struck a more moderate tone than what we have seen him say in recent times. So in a sense, I guess the answer to your question is yes. He did speak of, the U.S. being open for business, and his comments on trade, as I said, he was quite more measured than he's been lately. But he did mention this issue of reciprocal trade, which I think is something that people have a bit of a hard time understanding because it is in itself kind of a strange idea. If reciprocal trade basically means that you have to treat others in the same way that you want to be treated, then we should be speaking about a rules-based trading system, which is something that the president has criticized in the past. If reciprocal trade, on the other hand, means that everybody trades with each other evenly, this is something that makes no sense from an economic standpoint. So this strange idea of reciprocal trade that is still out there, even in this more measured statement on trade that the president's made, sounds a little bit strange, I think, to the investment community.
So the president certainly addressed the question of rules of trade internationally, and he acknowledged there are rules, but he said some countries are essentially getting around or even flaunting those rules. And let's be honest, if you take a country like China that talks a great game, as it were, on free trade, there are a lot of things China has in place that really discourage investment. So doesn't he have a point that, in fact, it isn't always fairly administered?
He has a point when he speaks about trade being fair. I think everybody understands what that means. And this is exactly why we have, the WTO and other, rule systems in place in order to regulate trade. It's also a fair point when he speaks of, the U.S. enforcing its own trade laws, which, by the way, the U.S. is fully engaged in doing. So all of these are fair points. The only thing that I think is still a very strange idea, as I was saying before, is this insistence on reciprocity without exactly spelling out what exactly reciprocity means. Is it related to a rules-based idea or not?
Also making headlines in Davos this week has been the Trump administration's dollar policy. Will the dollar this year be a product of fundamentals or politics? Well, it's always both. Currency movements are always affected by political issues as well as by economic fundamentals. So, there's no doubt that anything that happens to the dollar going forward is influenced by the two things. What I believe doesn't make a lot of sense, and what is usually thrown about in a very cavalier way, is people making statements about how strong or how weak a currency should be. I mean, ultimately, currencies will be weak or strong depending on both of these things, the political fundamentals as well as the macroeconomic fundamentals of an economy. Currently, the U.S. economy is doing well, it's strong, so one would expect, the dollar to be relatively stronger rather than weaker.